All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan, A.D, Drew, and look who's joining us, taking some time away from daddy duties. It's none other than Dad of the Year, Brandon King. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me. How you brothers doing this afternoon?
Hey, we do it. We're doing well. You got to give us the introduction. Who you got there with you?
This is my co-host here, Braylon John, right here with us.
All right. How did Braylon react to the news of Eddie George leaving? Was he crying like Tennessee State alums, or I don't know? Maybe he was smiling. I don't know.
He rolled over and went back to sleep.
Like Tennessee State alums. Oh, did I say that? My bad, Brandon.
Wow, my bad. The news came out again, as we talked about earlier in the show. You started hearing the rumblings yesterday, or maybe it was Friday, that Eddie George was having some discussions with Bowling Green. And sure enough, it looks like he took the offer. 5 years. Don't know the salary, but I will say, in looking at the previous head coach, who, by the way, stepped down from the role to take a job with the Philadelphia Eagles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So it's kind of why we were saying, kind of why it's so late. But the previous coach would have made about $600,000 according to his contract that I saw. So I'm gonna get out of the way, Brandon. When did you start hearing the rumblings? What have you been able to gather over the last 24 hours since this news started hitting the wires?
I started hearing it about late Friday night into Saturday. I had some text message. I was like, wait a minute now. Let me put the children down for a minute and kind of look into this thing. And then you come to find out on Saturday that not only was there some discussions, but he was a finalist to get the job. And folk asking around at the time, it was like, this is 50-50. It looks like he could take it. And then, of course, the news broke that he ended up taking the job. And like I said, there were some people who was upset, but I look at it like this, considering the 4 years that he was here or at Tennessee State, and you look at where that program was when he got there. And this is by no means no disrespect to the young men who were in uniform at that particular time, but the roster was bereft of a lot of the talent that you need to compete in the OVC. And with what was going on at Jackson State and with Coach Prime, so many people wanted him to kind of take that approach. But Coach Prime is a one of one. There's one person on this little blue ball that can do what he did, and that's him. And he took kind of a lower key. I call it more of an old school approach. You build it brick by brick, year by year. And we saw the results kind of bear itself out in year 4. So he talked about a little bit. There was an article in the Tennessean that came out, and he kind of talked a little bit in terms of why he decided to leave. And I'm paraphrasing, but as you all know, Tennessee State is experiencing some financial issues. There's uncertainty in terms of where they're going to go with school-wide leadership. And so those are things he said he saw himself staying there, but some of those issues did play a factor. And then you got to look at him going back to Ohio, which, he's a made man in that state. So I kind of understand. I'm not angry at him. I don't feel a certain type of way. I understand. When you have success like that, then the people are going to come sniffing around your program. So I think it was Steve Weiss said, I'm surprised it wasn't more even after last year. So
let me read the article here, Drew, before if you want to jump in there with a question or whatever. From that Tennessean you referenced, the statement from George said, quote, "There is never a good time for retirement or making a transition, moving on to a new coaching position. I had to really weigh my options and look at what I was walking away from and where I was going toward. There's a lot of reasons why I made the decision. My intentions were really to stay here at Tennessee State with hopes that things would definitely get better and so forth. And they will eventually. but just not in this time frame, and I understand that. Sounds like a man who understands the financial issues and the constraints and all the stuff that we've kind of talked about, that you've talked about, and the opportunity presented itself, and I guess you don't pass up on opportunities, do you?
No, in this case, you don't. And he's on previous Big South OVC media call, he's kind of referenced some of the financial constraints, not only from an athletic department standpoint, but by a larger degree to the university as a whole, and how that was kind of getting in the way of certain things that they wanted to do. You're kind of behind the eight ball in some things. So for him to bring that up in that particular statement, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, co-host.
You got anything, Drew?
Yeah, let's stay on that subject there. Some of the issues that Tennessee State has been going through. Obviously, we know there's the fuss about the back money that is owed to Tennessee State, the investment into other programs, such as started up the hockey program, to talk about bringing baseball back to Tennessee State. So some of the other things, which for overall athletic department are good, that we're having these discussions or these things are ongoing. But as a coach, if I was in this situation, somebody who's already there, y'all talk about doing all this other stuff, and I still don't have what I want or what I need at this point. Obviously, we know the stadium situation, the fact that now Tennessee State has entered into a new lease agreement with the new yet to be named stadium there in Nashville, which once again precludes them from coming back to Hale Stadium and on campus. So all these different factors coming into it. So Brandon, as a TSU alum, how do y'all feel? Because there was pull up that comment, Brian, from earlier.
Which one?
The one about the TSU alums.
Oh, this one from golf.
Yeah. So giving everything that you have to deal with, how true is the statement that golfing put out there? TSU alums are having a party that he left. They didn't think he should have been hired in the first place. So, whether he should have been hired or whether not, he was there. He did a more than adequate job with the tools that we put into his toolbox. But reality is reality, Brandon.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's some, I don't want to say on the fringe, but there is a certain segment of the fan base, the alumni base, if you will, that did not want him to get the job in the first place. Just like that particular comment reference. I remember having conversations with people year one, year two, and they was like, they need to fire him like right now. So there were people that thought that. I think these are people who probably did not support or watch games prior to Eddie George getting the job, because watching them, you go 5-6 in year one, you kind of take a slight step back at 4-7, and then you go 6-5 the third year. You could really see, and I would tell people the program is starting to turn the corner, because you see the roster is improving. The teams that blew the doors off them a couple years ago, they're now competing with and winning. The program is moving in the right direction. They stumbled at the end, and then we saw what they did last year. So you've got people, there's some people who aren't ever happy, no matter what. They could resurrect John A. Merritt and he could coach the team, and they would find some way to complain about that. So as an alum, like I said, I'm not upset with it, because even though he said in that statement that he saw himself not leaving, I didn't think he was going to necessarily be an HBCU lifer. I I thought it was going to be probably at most 5 to 6 years. Particularly either he would get it rolling and there would be an offer that he couldn't refuse and he'd leave that way, or the Rumble, it wouldn't go as planned and, he'd go back to doing what he was doing before then. So a lot of the people that I have talked with, I will say it has somewhat been a mixed bag, but the majority kind of recognize it for what it was. They're happy with what he was able to do while he was here, and they wish him the best. And I kind of fall into that category, having spoken with him, on calls and post game and whatnot. So considering where we were as a program before he got here, what do you have to be upset about?
All right, so now, Brandon, we have set a new standard, for lack of a better word, at Tennessee State with the George era. So now, what is Tiger Nation looking for in their next head coach, at least from an alumni perspective? Because we already know administration, if they don't have their ideas in place, then that's a different problem. And I'll give you that before I throw out a couple of names already and then get your reaction. So what are you looking for?
Me personally, I think there's two ways that I could see this go. You can go get a proven solid coach who can do enough to kind of keep this thing rolling as he puts his imprint on it. And then you can go the more splashy hire if you choose. I don't know, there are always certain names out there. I think at this point, whatever you do, you've got to act immediately, because considering the time of year it is, you don't want to fall too far behind in terms of recruiting and things of that nature. So I have some names, but I'm looking for a good, solid coach. It doesn't necessarily have to be the sexy hire, but let's get a guy in here that can continue to win and move the program forward.
Sources from the street committee, Brandon, told me that Ed Reed was one of the leading candidates for this job. I know. I had to start. Y'all
better put some respect on Ed Reed's name, damn it. Y'all put some respect.
That was street committee. Now that wasn't legitimate sources. That was just street committee.
That's Hall of Fame Ed Reed. To some of y'all who keep using his name with jokes behind it. I'm just saying.
Oh, seriously though, Brandon. Two names that Bryan and I have talked about is number one Connell Maynard, who has been a head coach since 2008, I believe. So if he doesn't get a job real soon, because all of the jobs currently are taken, except for this one that just opened up, would be the first time in over 15 years, and he's a winner. He's a proven winner, and also, since we want to go with the name recognition thing, how about Fred McNair in Nashville, Tennessee? Obviously, we know the relation to Steve McNair and what Steve was able to do in Nashville, and Fred is also a winner. So just two names from HBCU lifers that I want to throw out there. I'm pretty sure Bryan may have a couple other names, but let's start with those two.
I could. So it's funny you bring up Coach McNair, because when I went through my mental short list as this story was developing, that was one of the names that popped into my mind. And for all of those reasons, and considering what he was able to do at Alcorn, and though TSU is not, flush with cash, the resources there are a little bit more plentiful, and you got a larger recruiting ground and whatnot. It'd be interesting to see what he could do there. I'm wondering, I just saw this pop up about somebody in the staff. The fact that Dr. Allen has inserted himself as the interim coach.
Yes, please talk about that for a second. I'm like, what? I had to read that like 3 times when I saw that. Because when we looked at the release, I was like, wait,
what? I don't know if I've ever seen that. So it makes me wonder, will there be more staff defections to come? Because normally, as we've often seen, somebody from the staff will be appointed the interim. And
use your coordinator.
Yeah. And just to jump straight to the AD, I'm like, there's something else in the mix here.
Unless the AD still has that coaching itch.
Look,
what is his coaching background? Does Allen have a football coaching background?
You know what? I've never actually heard him in terms of coaching. I've never looked at it, and I'm going to have to actually look into that. Well, look, we don't need the Jerry Jones effect on this program right now. We don't. You might have coached at Occidental High back in '92. You don't need that right now. That's not what we want.
OMG.
As we know that Jerry Jones is the best thing that ever happened to the NFC East. For every other team, that is.
Nick, I got somebody here says he played for UT, so I don't know. Why not? Hell, everybody else who's a former player seems to be a good enough for a coach, so why not? Whatever. But I know I would add Well, but you got to imagine though, if you're moving from the FBS to the FCS, usually, as we have seen already down in South Florida, when Willie Simmons, in just 1 year, he got some former assistants who've been at other FCS programs, including who were on staff with him at Florida A&M, down at FIU, where the salaries are a little better. I got to imagine in the MAC, Bowling Green, the salaries for assistants are probably a lot better than at Tennessee State. So it would make sense that some of those assistants who helped him rebuild that program are probably like, oh, take us with you. And they probably, yeah, we did a good thing. I mean, come on, you go with me. I would not be surprised.
So what about this question Emmett throws out? What is the better situation? George to Bowling Green or Simmons to FIU?
That's an interesting question. I think if you look at it in terms of where the programs are right now in a vacuum, then Coach George going to Bowling Green is the easy answer, because they're coming off 3 straight bowl games. Yep. So his name alone will keep a lot of those guys who might have been thinking about hopping in the portal. Obviously, him being back in Ohio, now he can go into practically any living room in the state. They know who he is. He's already, he can go into the high schools and whatnot. And you two would be more of a little expert on this, but I know that, Willie Simmons being back in Florida, is known as he is. It's somewhat the same, but the program in terms of FIU is not quite on a sound footing in terms of wins and losses over recent history.
I'll add that is they're both are on par with 2 men who have ties to the state, ties to the recruiting area, but the difference is the history of the program. Simmons has a tougher task because of where he is in that program. Bowling Green in the MAC probably had, I don't profess to be a MAC expert, but I know Bowling Green has been in the MAC for a long time. They've been playing football in the MAC and at Bowling Green longer than FIU has had a football program. So in terms of the deep ties to a state and a conference, oh, definitely it's the Bowling Green job. And if they're putting in resources where they can pay a coach nearly $500,000, $600,000 last reported, and you're in the MAC and you're part of that TV package, Maction or whatever, I bet you they're making bigger strides there than at FIU. No doubt. And he has a better impact in the state of Ohio and Eastern Pennsylvania. I mean, Eddie's from Philadelphia, I believe. So that Pennsylvania is right there as well, where that football there, in that Ohio, Midwest, Pennsylvania area, that's a different breed of cats up there. And so, you're going to get you're gonna come across guys like Eddie George or Ohio State guys who are gonna gravitate towards what he wants to build at Bowling Green. So, you know, I mean, you know, who has a faster role of getting to a bowl game? I'll be honest.
Definitely Bowling Green.
Yeah, I would say that. Definitely Bowling Green.
Bowling Green.
Definitely Bowling Green. Mm-hmm.
And the ironic thing is, would it be ironic to see Bowling Green and FIU in a bowl game like the Boca Raton Bowl or something along those lines next year?
It could happen. It could happen. I want to ask your thoughts on this one, Brandon. Here, I put a post. I thought about the arc of Eddie George is fascinating. I don't know if you've ever had conversations or deep conversations with him, but I find it fascinating that 4 years ago when he took this job, he took it out of left field, really, where he was not. Coaching wasn't on his radar. I'm paraphrasing something he said. It wasn't something that he visioned to do. But I guess the coaching bug has hit him so much so that you're interviewing for NFL positions. You're taking a FBS job, moving to the – I mean, does the arc of Eddie – I mean, does he have that bug? Have you talked to him? Does it seem like – what I don't predictive. Like I knew, for example, and I'll get out of the way here. Like we knew within the FAMU community that Willie Simmons eventually was going to go to an FBS because he has always had aspirations. He played at Clemson, so we knew he had aspirations of coaching at the FBS level. But again, Eddie George, nothing. What's your thoughts?
Well, like you said, when it was initially announced, like I said, it was just out of left. It was like, what? Really? And yeah, he's actually said it before. It was something that more or less came and found him, through conversations with former President Dr. Glover, and was like, just asking him, and then just flat out asked him. And then at first he was like, nah. And then the conversations rolled back around. And then at that point, he gave it a serious look and decided, to pursue this thing. And then he said, as the process of him becoming a coach and kind of getting some of that OJT and working with the young men and seeing, the impact that he could have, it kind of, he got that coaching, that itch, so to speak, and to the point he really, kind of developed a passion and a love for coaching. To, like you said, he's interviewing for NFL jobs and FBS jobs and things of that nature. And so I guess it's kind of one of those things where something, a path that, that you weren't looking for finds you. Because, he had his wealth management firm he was doing very well with. And then this kind of came out of nowhere. So it's an interesting arc in terms of seeing just how this is developed. And you got to think, considering from conversations and seeing his approach.
Oh, did we lose him?
Yeah, we might have lost him. All right, let me see.
Let's give it a second.
Yeah, I'll give it a second to see if I see his camera come back on here in a minute. I'm trying to see if we can finish up the last conversation with Brandon King.
Mike Rodar Reed throws one out.
Mike, you're so wrong, Mike.
I mean, is Ed Too Tall not one of the best players that ever played for Tennessee State? If not the best, he's definitely top 5.
Can I ask hold on, here's Brandon back. Hold on. Okay, Brandon, we got you. We got you, Brandon. You there? Hold on, give him a second, get situated. Can you hear us? We see you. Off mute. You got us?
Probably got a phone call while he was talking to us, sometimes.
Might be.
Try it one more time, Brandon.
Not hearing you. All right. Hold on. Let me give him a second here to adjust. He's doing something. Hold on. We got you there, Brandon. Okay, he's gonna come back.
One more time. I did see one other name in the chat, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up this interview. Somebody threw out Dawson Odoms earlier also for a,
that's Lennon being messy. Don't do that.
Hey,
Lennon being messy. Don't do it. Well, there's a lot of former. Here he goes. Let's see. We got Brandon. Hold on. We got you now, Brandon.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, finish your thoughts. You were saying.
But no, I was just saying it. I think ultimately, with the way he approaches the coaching profession now, and from speaking with him, the passion that he obviously has for it, and obviously the success that he's having, it would not surprise me to see him at a major university in the not too distant future.
All right,
that's awesome.
I like that. Well, hold up before we get out of here, Brandon. Since your handle is sneakershoptalk.com, and then we can't help but see the sneakers behind us. Tell us what's the hottest kicks right now that you want to talk about, man.
Well, let's see what just dropped. They just had some Air Jordan 5s that dropped that people are fighting over. If I had
a fight,
it was actually fighting in the store.
Wow. What is it, 1995? What's going on out there in the streets?
They was thumping in the store. These here, I'm sure you'll remember these here.
Oh yeah.
These will those are on the way there. There's a couple other shoes that are coming. Since I got y'all on the call, you'll appreciate these here. Hold on.
Oh, look at that. Oh yeah.
Well, these are the FAMU LeBron 7s. But they're 2025 is a pretty busy year in terms of highly sought after release. It's going to be a very expensive year. Those are the latest. There is another version of these, not this particular shoe, but this they're called the Galaxy foams. They're bringing they just brought these back out. And this was when that shoe released in 2012, that was the shoe that changed everything. People was waiting out in lines and fighting and all that sort of thing. So that was a watershed moment in terms of sneaker culture. But yeah, those are kind of the ones that come to mind. There's literally a crazy release about every week now.
Right.
Right.
All right. Well, let me give the plug here outside of sneakershoptalk.com. Make sure to tune in Wednesday night. I know Brandon, along with Dave and Tariq, Jeff, those guys who cover the Indy Report on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU SportsLab every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm sure Brandon will have some updates on what's happening. At that point, it'll be 72 hours post the Eddie George decision. So Brandon, we kind of look forward to tuning in and finding out more. Any other plugs you want to drop, or where people, let them know where they can find you outside of sneakershoptalk.com in case they want to get updates on Eddie George and this what more, I guess at this point, what Tennessee State is going to do next. As Eddie George has said goodbye to Tennessee State, and now it's on to what is Tennessee State going to do is the big question.
My handles are the same across all of social media. So you can check me out there. I post regularly on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it this week. Instagram with a sprinkling of Facebook as well.
I love it. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, we appreciate your time. Your co-host did a great job. So that's got to be worth some extra wait time or some snacks, something. Did a great job co-hosting. And,
an extra shot of formula.
Yeah, we look for more appearances. We look for more appearances on maybe Wednesday night, Brandon. More appearances on Wednesday night.
He's been making his presence known on more of these shows.
Nice. Beautiful.
There you
Beautiful.
go. Start him young. Start him young.
Start him young. Exactly. Start him young. There you go.
That's right.
All right. Hey, appreciate your time tonight, Brandon. Be well.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Appreciate you, Doc.
All right. Appreciate Brandon for coming in.